Hello, welcome to the Word Cafe podcast. This podcast has been designed with curated content that centers on the power of words. Can we really do anything without speaking? Can we really do anything without the agency of words? Yes, that is what this podcast is all about. And I am your host, Amakri Isobwe, your neighborhood word trader. I believe in the power of words, for it is the unit of creation. I trade in words to profit my world. Hello there. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good everything, wherever you are. Yes, on the globe at this moment, listening to me. How are you all doing? Beautiful, beautiful. I know you're having a swell time. Yes, we're back again into the studio of the World Cafe live show. I'm super excited. You know why? This is the first recording of the second year or beginning of the second year of the World Cafe. We just celebrated about 365 days. Yes. And today marks a new beginning for us here on the World Cafe Live Show. I am super excited. And I'm beginning this bit of the, should I say, side of the show with something interesting. Yes, you're wondering, what are we going to be talking about today? Energy transition. And I have someone I consider, should I say, an expert in this field, so that we're going to talk and have a swell time. Yes, I know you're wondering, where is this person? He's around. You know how we do it. His name is Adrian Mason, an expert in the energy sector, particularly oil and gas. Yes, we're going to be spending that, time and talking and getting to know ourselves. You want to see him? I want to see him too. I'm going to bring him on now. Yes. Hi, Adrian.
Macri, hi. Lovely to speak with you. How are you?
I'm okay. And you?
I'm wonderfully well. Thank you for inviting me on your show.
What's it like at your end? What's the weather like? What's happening?
It's a beautiful sunny day in London today. It's crisp, but fine weather, which is an improvement from the storms that we've had recently.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. You're welcome to the show. I know this is your first time here, and it's like, what is it going to be like? Don't worry, it's going to be fun. But before we kickstart, questioning and all whatnot, who is Adrian Mason? Let's get to know him. Let's get to meet you, your background and all that.
It's a question I ask myself on a daily basis. Who is Adrian Mason? I've worked in the energy sector for all of my career. I tell you where I started. I actually read chemistry at university a long, long time ago, when my hair was even longer than it is now. And I managed to secure a role in one of the laboratories at a small company called Shell Research. So that's where I started in the energy sector. And to be honest, I've always had a fascination and a passion for the oil and gas sector. It really underpins everything in this world, doesn't it? Energy and access to power. And so my journey has taken me through a number of organizations, both large and small, seeing all aspects of the industry. And now I work with an organization, Global Data, that allows me to reach out to a wide audience and try to educate and make it a little bit more interesting what's going on in these turbulent times. And that's how you and I have connected in the big wide world out there.
Wonderful. I mean, you can imagine you've been in this sector all your life. So you've moved from one level to the other. You've seen the different, should I say, sides and complexity of the industry. Now, there's a buzzword in the last, 20 years, but more recently, we've been coming across the word energy transition, and we have a lot of transitions going on out there. So, I mean, what is energy transition all about?
That's a very good question. Energy transition it's actually a vision. It's actually a pathway to the future where we are heading towards net zero, reducing our carbon emissions from historically what was the oil and gas sector.
Yeah.
So you can imagine that for over 100 years, economies have been based on hydrocarbons being taken from the ground, and now people are becoming more and more concerned and interested in low carbon solutions. What can we use that is sustainable? What can we use that is renewable and lessen our reliance on traditional oil and gas? And so there's a global pathway that's being led for us to get to a point where there are no longer carbon emissions coming from the power sector. Net zero by 2050 is that pathway. And the energy transition is seen as how we move from a hydrocarbon oil and gas based power sector to one that's using much more renewable energies. And that is what the energy transition is.
All right. Now, take, for example, the common man who walks on the street hears us talking about energy transition, and he's like, okay, you've talked about what, in a nutshell, what energy transition is all about. How do we begin the process? Where do we start from? And like drawing, should I say, a map? Okay, we begin from point A to point B. Point B tells us the level of progress we have made. Okay, fine. We can now take it up to maybe point D, E, F, and all the way. So how do we start all of this process as in concerning energy transition?
I think firstly, it comes down to education and understanding. People need to be aware. Everybody has seen the impact of climate change. Everybody understands what pollution and environmentalism actually means. And so people need to become concerned. People need to take positive actions themselves and realize that they want to use energy providers and forms of transport that are using low carbon and renewable energy. Now, I'm not demonizing oil, the oil industry at all. It's been my bread and butter and yours. And we know that it provides a lot of incredibly important aspects and provisions around the world. But we are on a journey, and that journey needs to start now. Once people become motivated and educated about the choices, then that's how we're going to actually get towards our goals.
It always, any kind of change always begins from that point of discussion, educating ourselves. And this has been a major challenge around the world, getting people, just like I said, you're not demonizing the oil and gas now, but, we need to come to that place of understanding, this is what the impact is on the environment, and is a chain reaction. It hits one point and that domino effect, and it just goes on and on. Now, from your point of view, how can we get that education going?
That again, it's a very important question, but I think there lies a large responsibility on the huge oil and gas companies, the multinational, international oil companies, to pass down that message. So we've talked about the likes of Shell and BP and ExxonMobil. They need to take charge and drive this energy transition. Okay, they are the organizations that have profited from the oil sector, and they need to begin this process and educate the public as well. I think from a government perspective, any kinds of subsidies and grants that allow people to easily take use and make benefit of things like solar power and grants for bio power as well. I think these are all very, very important steps to get into people's consciousness that there are other solutions than simply using gas or coal or oil for their heat and power generation.
Awesome. Now, the energy transition discussion as in renewables and all that, when you look at it in a broad sense, you see that there are two sides to it. What do I mean by two sides to it? In terms of who wants it and who is it going to, as in better at the end of the day. The West and Europe, talking about Europe and the US and all that. You see that messaging going on so strong. But when you flip the coin, come to Africa, it's not that strong because we are still looking at prospecting, oil and gas and what have you. So how do we bring these two bodies to that platform to see that, okay, it's a win-win situation. We need to work together more or less like partners, not in crime, but in progress.
Oh, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Africa has seen some of the largest discoveries of both oil and gas reserves in the last 20 years. It is, without question, it's the continent that has the most untapped reserves of anywhere in the world. And I do feel that it is the responsibility and right of the European and Western nations to be able to bring those reserves to the front and help the development of Africa without any question. There is no shortage of money and investment to assist in the energy transition. There's no shortage of money. And there's also so many untapped reserves that we should be able to look at cleanly bringing to the front as well, particularly those gas reserves, for instance, that have recently been found in Namibia and South Africa as well. So there's no reason that we can't do that. And once these projects have come to development, then that should mean that more money and resource is filtering down into the countries and the local communities. And then that will allow the process of adding renewable energy into the mix as well, to allow this process to begin. I'm a firm believer that should be the case.
All right. Now, in the recent, should I say 1-2 weeks, we've had a little, I want to call it a little bit of crisis. We've had this major crisis, in Europe, Russia-Ukraine issue. Do you think this issue in any way has put, should I say, a setback on the energy transition process in any way?
Well, certainly it's shifted the focus of attention, but I don't think it's derailed the process. So let me explain what I mean by that. So for instance, Germany was reliant to up to 40% of its gas imports from Russia. So suddenly the prospect of seeing that go to zero within a few weeks or months has opened up much more concern about energy security rather than necessarily moving towards an energy transition. So, for instance, in the UK, there was an immediate call by the government and the Chancellor to open up production on a number of gas fields in the North Sea, primarily to retain energy security. Now, as part of that security, putting more and more renewables into the mix will allow people to lower their reliance on importing gas from, for instance, Russia, but anywhere from the Middle East or Australia or anywhere in the world. So thinking about it in that sense, we've shifted the narrative slightly, but still increasing the power generation from renewable and sustainable sources will allow us to meet that end goal in both ways.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hello, nerds. Come listen to the History Nerds United podcast, and let's make history fun again. We interview today's best authors, whether they are established Pulitzer Prize winners or someone debuting their first book. Let us show you that history is not a boring class you took in high school, but a place where the best stories come from. And we don't just cover history, we also love to chat about true crime, biographies, memoirs, and so much more. So head on over to History Nerds United and let us introduce you to your new favorite book and learn the story behind the story.
History Nerds United. Last week, we saw the oil price hit about, I think, 130 per barrel. And all of a sudden, we just had this ripple effect globally on price on so many items and all that. Do you see that as in being sustainable at that price? Or we see the price coming down also to affect commodity pricing all over?
The shock that people are feeling from not just the energy sector and their heating bills, but also commodities and the lack of certain metals and minerals into the market has been profound. And let me assure you, everybody is feeling that. Everybody is talking about that. The recent flip, shall we say, the recent increase in the oil price of approximately 40%, no, that's not sustainable. But over the course of the last 18 months, you've seen it rise from around $30 a barrel to where we are now, which is touching 100. And unfortunately, I see that being the case for the not too distant future. I actually think it will rise steadily in the immediate term. If you look at oil prices historically, they go through periods of correction, shall we say, and then periods of sustained growth over the course of 3, 4, 5 years. So we're in the middle of another one of those cycles, it appears. So unfortunately, the higher oil prices are probably here to stay for a little while longer.
A while longer, like from your professional standpoint, for put it in months, in years, for how long?
I would say at least for the rest of the year. Very difficult to make long-term predictions, but in 2022, I see it remaining over $100.
Over $100. So now, what do we do to cushion this effect? Because somehow it is affecting, like you and I know, globally, commodity pricing and others. What do we really do? Maybe from government point of view, or the oil and gas, or the energy policy makers and all that. What do we really do to bring about a little bit of respite?
This is, again, a really interesting and fascinating topic, because when we look at global power demand for the future out to 2050, it's expected that the world is looking to double their power demand and consumption within that time period. So we're looking at generating twice as much electricity. So a lot of the conversations are always based around, well, we need new sources of energy, different types, more renewables, etc., etc. Not a lot of the conversation is actually based around reducing energy consumption and how we can spend less on electricity, be less reliant on, for instance, air conditioning, heating, etc., etc. So I think the conversation and education, which we talked about earlier, which is a really key point, I think education and awareness within the public sphere about reducing energy consumption may allow us to help in this difficult time for heating and energy bills.
I was looking at the 2021 up until, say, January of 2022, when the style of working, basically we all moved working from home. And when you look at the statistics of energy consumption and what have you, there was this fall, so to say, because we're more at home. The city centers where you have a lot of business activities going on came to a halt, so to say. But somehow governments are beginning to like push for people to go back to that office space. Do you think this will, should I say, have a negative impact on the energy transition discussion?
It's a good question. I think when people are not commuting, for instance, I work in London, and there was a drastic change in the amount of people traveling into the center of the town, a drastic change in the number of establishments that were open. People have connected so much more to outside spaces, into working environments that do not include the busy city office life. It's definitely making people more aware. There were so many stories, weren't there, about how wildlife and carbon emissions, and effectively the world was trying to regenerate itself when we gave ourselves a bit of a break from the endless commute. And I think that's resonated with a lot of people. So hopefully this again will align people to think about what is their overall energy use, how can I be more sustainable and more green in my approach to life in general.
Beautiful. All right. So what is Adrian up to? Looking at your activities, and all that. What's your next project? What are you up to, say, in the next 1 month, 2 months, the next future?
No, I've been thinking a lot about how you and I connected, for instance. So, I have been blessed to be able to reach an audience of my followers on LinkedIn, and I write every single day about what's happening in the markets, and I want to expand that as well. And I've been thinking about what voices there are out there, what stories, what experience that I can gather from my connections to make really more important, more interesting posts for my guys and articles. Every single day, every single week, I get messages from people around the globe saying, Adrian, I really enjoy what you've put out. Thanks for doing that. That was very informative. I want to reach those people in the best way that I can. So I'm open to advice and take it from the master, someone like yourself, to be able to connect
I think
to my audience.
I think you can begin maybe a podcast or a blog on energy, how it affects, would I use the word, the poetic side of energy? There's something I came to discover reading about Shakespeare and how he helped make the English language one a force to be reckoned with. And how did he do that? Started a theater. He just speaks those random words that are spoken in the courts and what have you, and he brings them into the theater where people gather, and he begins to act them out with his crew. And gradually, somehow, the language started permeating into every strata. So I think the poetic side of the energy transition, because when you talk about energy transition, generally people consider it to be a boring subject. Like, what is that? But they don't know that boring subject holds so much potential about their future. So bringing the poetic side to it, I think, will drive people to want to know more and relate with the subject better. Just my thinking in that direction. I think from your standpoint, with the data, the amount of data you have and knowledge in that subject, definitely you'll be an authority for anybody to listen to it, bringing that poetic side to it.
I agree. The human element, being able to connect to what people are doing in their daily lives, I think might be able to take us to the next level. I thank you. I will credit you for that when we get that going.
Guys, we have been talking with Adrian Mason. I mean, soft-spoken guy, but you will agree with me. He's been taking us through that journey, about energy transition and what we should be doing and expecting in the nearest future. All right, Adrian is very busy. I just have 1 or 2 more questions for him and we will let him go. Now, the Russia-Ukraine issue, how, if the issue was not resolved, should I say in the nearest future, like maybe 1-2 weeks, how will that impact on the energy sector globally?
There's already been repercussions for sure. What it's initially done is, again, focus people's attention on their energy security, but also it's given opportunity for some of the OPEC and OPEC plus countries to switch the taps on and produce more hydrocarbons on a daily basis to try and fill in the gap. But also it's making governments and countries think about, well, where do we actually get our energy from? Where can we actually bring in or import enough fuel to keep our power stations going? So it's very, very important, I think, that this issue is resolved as quickly as possible. Everybody is hoping that, because there's going to be huge knock-on effects, not just for the oil and gas market, but for all of the other industries that it affects, things like fertilizer, commodities, even the metals and minerals market. There's going to be big implications to that as well.
Okay, my last question before I let you go. The millennials, from your standpoint, what has it been like embracing the energy transition discussion? Are they really interested? Are they, should I say, open to what the opportunities within that space?
What I would say, what is refreshing is that the younger generation have been brought up surrounded by wind energy, solar farms. They talk about hydrogen. They talk about renewables as something that's part of their cause. Climate change is something that they are focused and interested on, and would always move and gravitate towards that part of the energy sector. They do feel a little bit that the oil and gas industry is a bit like myself, a little bit older, maybe a bit past it, and they want to focus on what's upcoming. Yeah, so I do believe that the future is in good hands with that generation, and a lot of technological developments will be seen in the next 3 to 5 years that will allow us to meet our targets for 2030 and beyond.
Beautiful. All right, Mason, thank you so much for giving us this time, to shine some light, on this topic. I am so grateful. Before I let you go, what is that, would I say, central thought that has been with you and you want to see it progressed within the couple of weeks, months?
All I would like to say as a wrap up is that energy and energy transition, it's just like life in general. We have to embrace all different forms of energy. We have to embrace the mix, and together we move forward and make sure everybody has access to everything that they need for the best life.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Guys, I need to let Adrian go at this point, but I want to say a very big thank you to Adrian and you listening out there. You know how we do it on the show. We always come in to, lean on one another and, lean and glean from our experiences to make progress all around us. I want to say a very big thank you because this is the first, episode on the beginning of the second year of the Word Cafe live show. And absolutely, I'm glad having Adrian for us to begin this part of the show on energy transition. Thank you so much. Till we come your way again, my name is Amakri Isoboye, and you know how we say it on the show. Thank you. Bye for now. Oh yeah, beautiful. Before we sign off, I just want to encourage you. Yeah, it's been a wonderful time. And also, I'd like to hear from you, your feedback. You've been listening to the Word Cafe podcast. I would love to hear from you, the feedback. If you have any questions, you go ahead and ask those questions. You can reach me at my email address, amacrigaribaldi@gmail.com. Amacri is AMACHREGaribaldi@gmail.com. And we'll get back. You know how we do it on the show. Thank you. Awesome time it has been with you on the Word Cafe podcast today. Thank you for being there. You can catch me up on my social media handles, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, all at Amakri Isoboye. Also, you can get copies of my books, A Cocktail of Words, The Color of Words, and my HR notebook on Amazon and on Robin Heights online bookstores. You can also subscribe to my YouTube page at the same address. Yes, till we see you again. Bye for now.